as time flies by, you'll open up your eyes wide. You feel it's gonna go your way. Hey, hey, it's a brand new day. Hey, 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 it's a brand new day.
Welcome back to Marbella Now. My name is Nicole King, and what a pleasure to start off this week's program in the harbour, the Puerto Deportivo. They call here the Virgen del Carmen, but for us in English it's the central Marbella harbour. There are 4 ports in our lovely city, and this is one of them. If you haven't been here, you should come and walk around. There are great markets on a Sunday, lots of great restaurants, including the harbour restaurant inside the Royal Maritime Club, El Club Real Marítimo. It's a superb opportunity to see a bit of the more Spanish side of our fabulous city, and what a great show we've got lined up for you here at the port today. Some great guests, very cool ones, I dare say. Come on, let's get started.
Let the music get to your heart. Let it set you on your way. No time to hesitate. We are all the same. So much trouble tearing us apart. Poison arrows shoot straight to your heart. We can change if we try. Just believe it's worth your time. One. Let the feeling into your soul. Let it set you on your way. No need to hesitate. Time to make a change. There'll be no trouble tearing us apart.
We're going to be welcoming our guests today to the Harbour Marbella, this fabulous restaurant inside the Royal Maritime Club. But before we do, I'd like to take you over to the Kitsch Social Club, because that's where Marina Nitzak, founder and president of Lux Marbella, celebrated their 5th anniversary party. It was a beautiful event, exquisite as always, and just so joyous to see so many people together from different nationalities. Marina said in the interview you're about to hear that she's not sure if the integration of the Russians more into our local community is anything to do with her, but you and I know better. It 100% is. Marina Nitzak.
Hey, hey, it's a brand new day.
Where is the love shining through it all? Drops of rain will fall. Feel it coming down. Where is the love? Takes your breath away. It leaves you unafraid. Feel it falling from above. Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Look around, am I halfway in the clouds? I can feel it coming down.
Hashtag Me Marina is celebrating 5 years of Lux Marbella. We were there, the first celebration, the launch, Marina, what can I say? You've outdone, I think, even your own expectations. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I think you were there way before the first one, before the 0 one. You were there from the very start. And so it's so wonderful to have old friends that have supported us all the way. And just this morning, someone said to me that only in Spain, only 3 out of 10 companies make it to their 5th anniversary. So I do take it as a great omen, as a great sign. So we're proud. Yes, we're very happy.
Normally in Marbella it's 18 months, so it's like
Yes.
it's even less. It's a tough market to break into. But you have a gift because you are naturally nice. You're a coach by profession as well as all your business acumen. How have you seen the Russian communities develop the last 5 years?
I think it's evolved in a really, really nice way. There is a lot more integration than there was even when we started. There was a lot of you're here, you're there, I don't know what you're about, and it's a lot more open now. I can't say it's all down to us, but I think it's a lot more Marbella-ized. Now I see a lot more friendships, a lot more people, Russians you can see talking to the Spanish, to the English, and there is somehow this thing, this barrier has really come down. I'm so happy to see that.
We even talked about this, I think it was even last summer, about these differences. It takes time, but you can really see the difference. I walked in this evening and I realized that I knew people that before I wouldn't have recognized. So there is a change. In the people living here, with the crisis a little while ago, how has that affected the resident Russian population?
I think there hasn't been really, we haven't seen, I know a lot of Russian people. I don't know one single Russian person who's left Marbella. I don't know anybody. Like I know Russians who tried to live in Germany and they couldn't, and they tried Italy, or they tried France, or they tried the States. But Marbella we love it here. It's our natural habitat, wonderful gastronomy, wonderful people, we get great welcome, so we're all very happy here.
Well, it's very nice to hear that you're all very happy here. You're bringing up a young family here. You work with your husband here. What do you see for the next few years for Lux Marbella? Where's the growth direction?
Well, last year we opened the Investors Club, which is basically to help the investors, not just Russian, but also international investors, to really make the best decisions for them in terms of investment, whether it's in a company, whether it's a large-scale investment. Today we have a few investors with a lot of money looking to invest in shopping centers, looking to invest maybe in a hospital, in a school. So we really have positioned ourselves to help to be that bridge. Before we were a bridge just for introductions, now we see ourselves as a bridge for investors wanting to invest here in Marbella.
When they're here, there's a lot of things that people don't understand. There's a lot to get used to. Lux Marbella is more dedicated to the day-to-day of surviving. You have bloggers. Give us a brief outline of what Lux Marbella handles.
Well, Lux Marbella, we have the oddest requests. This morning, literally, I got a request from a lady in Moscow, in a city near Moscow, that wants to find a Spanish husband for her daughter. Her daughter got divorced, she's got a daughter herself, and she's asked me what is the best way to introduce her daughter, to find her daughter a good match, a Spanish man that is open to have a family. So we get requests really random. There is all sorts of, some ask about schools, some ask us about investments, some ask about going out, some are looking for partners for business. So we really, on a daily basis, my range of emails and questions is really quite random and really quite wide. So I love that, because thanks to them I get to find out these things, because obviously I try to help, so I go to you, to them, to find out the answers for them. So it's fun, you don't get bored.
I can see that. You never stop. Your children are still young. They talk Spanish, English, Russian. How are they finding, adapting, growing up here? How do you find it for your kids?
Well, they feel Andalusian. My daughter often has an Andalusian accent. They're growing up here. Their friends are from school, although they're going to bilingual schools. They're more Andalusian. They'll know a lot about local culture, and it's our job to really keep up for them to keep up to date with Russian language, with Russian games, with Russian films. So, they're more local than they are Russian. So it's more us. Now there are so many centers, educational centers for Russians here. So they go once, twice a week. They go and have their lessons and have their Russian culture and have their Russian food. So but they love it here. No,
everything to gain, nothing to lose. And with Galicia, you've been traveling there. You've been collaborating with the government there to get the Russians also moving around Spain. How do they like Spain as opposed to the English Spain?
Well, we have here, over there is the most beautiful blonde girl that saw last year, so one of the catalogs, and she said, "Is this true? Like, show me your own pictures. Is it real? Does it look like Caribbean?" And the very next week they booked and they went, and she did a fabulous promotional video for us of her travel because she loved it so much, because it's really not very well known. So today they traveled again from far away to be with us here, and I'm very grateful for their ongoing 4 years already ongoing support, and they're lovely people. And it's not just one way, they come a lot here. They've met the tourism delegation. It's a lot of back and forth, but it's meeting each other. It's all finding out about each other. So I think it's wonderful.
Hashtag so much better together. Congratulations, Marina.
Thank you so much.
Where is the love shining through it all? Drops of rain will fall. Feel it coming down. Where is the love? Takes your breath away. It leaves you unafraid. Feel it falling from above. Where is the love? Clouds, I can feel it coming down. I almost feel the love. Now I see, I believe we can be anything we want to be. You won't.
Hey, hey.
Free taxi 4 times a month and 25% discount on your car insurance if you're the Zero Hero. The Harbour restaurant here in the harbour in Marbella, Playwrights and Beckett's are all of the same group, and they're all renowned for the excellence of their cuisine and also for the excellence of their wines. And who doesn't like to stay when you're in a beautiful setting to have a drink after dinner? However, if you are the driver, you need to be careful. You shouldn't be drinking and driving. Thanks to Linear Director and the Road Traffic Safety Foundation Linear Director, we can give you free taxi up to 4 times a month. If you've been drinking, you don't need to drive home. You can ring 952 14 78 34 and Linear Director will send you a free taxi to take you and your car home as well by tow truck if you want, free of charge if you have your car insurance with them. Oh, such a great offer. Should be something we should all be doing.
Hey, hey.
very passionate about my United Nationalities of Marbella Summit get-togethers and what we can do as a community to help each other, as well as looking to how we can help people outside of our community. It's such an honour to welcome to the programme, not just today, I hope, the Federal Human Rights Commissioner of Australia, the first Federal Human Rights Commissioner of Australia. Is that correct, Brian?
That's absolutely right, Nicole. Thank you very much for having me.
I am just beside myself now. This gentleman's contact came from my lovely Anita Norje of the Rotary Club Amigas, but also from everywhere else, and I do appreciate that this is quite an opportunity. So with your permission, I'm going to dedicate quite a bit of time to your interview, because I think there is just so much that our community, I have seen, wants to help each other. And I think with some guidelines that you can give us will be very, very beneficial to all of us. I really don't know where to start, except I think I need to start with a very, for me, important question, something I find very hard myself when I try to help other people, and the futility of administration systems that already exist, people who live off the problem, people who make money with the issues that we would want to maybe resolve. How do you, on a personal level, deal with that day to day with everything you've seen?
Well, I think on a personal level, I often say to the young people that I'm teaching, don't ever think that one person can't make a difference. All of us can make a difference. My particular passion, I suppose, has been that in 1948, after the end of the Second World War and the creation of the United Nations, there was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And what that was really about, Nicole, was the countries of the world getting together and saying, we never want another disaster like this, we don't want the Holocaust again, so we're going to recognise that all individuals have the same human rights. That was very important, because in international law before that, it was just relations between countries, and that was the first time in our lifetime, and indeed before that, that international law and the world's countries had recognised that individuals, we all have rights. Governments don't have rights. They have an obligation to respect and protect our rights. And so one of the reasons I think we're very fortunate to live in this beautiful part of Spain is that so many of the countries that I'm working in, and I was in Zimbabwe 2 weeks ago, are countries where most of the population really don't even have the most basic human rights that you and I just take for granted.
The thing is, what you've just said, taking those human rights for granted. We have a government that supposedly represents the people, but if the people are too busy on the day-to-day world to even look at what the governments are doing, far too often, not even in undeveloped countries necessarily, it's not exclusive to them, the governments take advantage. How can we, the people, realise that we, each one of us, can make a difference? And it is up to us, it is our obligation in the name of those who don't have these basic rights, that we need to speak up, each of us, for something.
Well, I think you're right, and there's a paradox in democracy, a very real paradox. Democracy is the rule of the majority. All of the people that I had to spend time helping when I was the Federal Human Rights Commissioner were not the majority. They were either intellectually disabled, mentally ill, sometimes from minorities, sometimes Indigenous peoples. And I had the privilege before that to be the Chief of Staff to my former Prime Minister. And one of the things I saw at the heart of our government in Australia was that the most vulnerable and the most disadvantaged people are not at the top of the political agenda, because those minorities, the disabled, the mentally ill, they're not the majority. And governments want to get elected, and they get elected by getting 51% of the vote. So those of us who have the great good fortune to have good health and are reasonably intelligent, I think we all have an obligation to work on behalf of people who are either affected by certain disabilities or mental illness or whatever. And that's many more people in our community than we think of, both at the younger age, and here I know that Alzheimer's, dementia, mental health problems that older people have, it's a growing issue in our society because we're all getting older. So there's all these issues that we can work at, and the role of civil society, that's anybody that's not government, has become increasingly important in the last 30 or 40 years. So the sort of organisations you've got here in Marbella, the community service organisations, the non-government organisations that are helping other people. And that's one of the reasons I came and decided to go into semi-retirement here. Because one of the wonderful things I see here is so many people, sometimes working in organisations, community-based organisations, helping the homeless, the mentally ill, people with disabilities and so on. And I think that's a wonderful part of this society.
I do too. In fact, I think most of us that live here realise how privileged we are, and we want to give back because of this gratitude. But this takes me to my next question for you, Brian. I understand at my age, mother of 3, about to be a grandmother, and I think with age comes wisdom and hopes for the future and the children of the future. But you started on this path when you were young. And so what happened to you? What was your circumstance as a child? What made you realise or take this path? I find that quite curious.
It was probably my mother. Interesting that you should refer to your position now as a mother, almost to be a grandmother. My mother taught children with disabilities. And after she'd raised 5 of us, she went back to university and got qualifications to teach children with disabilities. Now, I come from Australia, one of the wealthiest countries in the world. But do you know, there was no money. There was no additional money for teachers to have teaching aids. You need special equipment if you're going to teach children who've got intellectual or physical disabilities. You need some sort of provision for their needs if you're going to give them an equal chance in terms of education. And so it made me very angry. And I suppose that was one of the things that started me on the road to becoming a lawyer, and then a diplomat, and then a political advisor, and then whatever. But for the last 50 years, in one way or another, I've had the enormous privilege of working on issues related to human rights of the most vulnerable and disadvantaged people, because I think of the value system that I picked up perhaps subconsciously from my mother. I mean, I think a lot of the things that we learn as children, we don't learn out of books. We just learn by picking up the value system that we're a part of. And I'm enormously grateful to my mother, who's no longer with us, but she passed away some years ago. But that value system, I think, is extremely important. And anybody who ever underestimates the role and the influence of a mother in conveying the value system to her children just doesn't understand how the world works.
Well, I have to agree. When I first found out about the chromogen lenses, my daughter had learning problems, and I went to speak to the Association of the Blind in Spain, the ONCE, and the main optician told me, in fact, I was just a mere mother, and who was I to go and say anything? However, it's known over 100 opticians, and it really does work. And brings me again to comment from my experience. A lot of children, for example, with learning problems actually do not have problems at all. The problem is that the system, the education system, is only catered to the people who can learn and then give back that information. But we have people who are pianists, and people who are trapeze artists, and people who are drummers, and people who are lawyers, or they're whatever. So we are all different. We have individual fingerprints, and yet we call children problematic if they're not following a system which is made, again, for a percentage, but it's not for everybody, and yet it's the person who's different, the one who's not in the norm, who tends to be like yourself, going out there to take on the world.
I've been very fortunate, but I think one of the things that we've recognised, or that we have to recognise, and in a couple of weeks I've got to go to China, where in Beijing the divorce rate's approaching 40%. Now, if people don't like each other, I'm the first one to agree that they should simply separate. However, in the European and English legal systems, children didn't have rights. We simply assumed that children would be looked after by loving, caring parents. One of the first big inquiries I had to do in my own country, we had thousands of homeless children. And when I started to look at the evidence, these children came from families that had fractured, and frankly, everybody had simply assumed that somebody would look after them. In some cases, we put them into institutions, but institutional care doesn't work very often. Children need care and affection and love and attention. You put them in a place where they're just another number or just another individual, it doesn't work. And so now that we live in a world where there are many more blended families, there are many more families that perhaps are facing challenges because of, well, a whole range of reasons, sometimes economic, sometimes it doesn't matter. If the family falls apart, sometimes those children fall through the cracks. And if we don't get involved in early intervention and prevention very quickly, for instance, homeless children within 72 hours will be breaking the law. They'll be pinching car radios, or they'll be breaking it because kids survive.
What else are they going to do?
The kids survive. So if we don't get involved in looking at the value of our young people, which is, after all, our most valuable infrastructure, we can talk about railways and highways and roads and all the rest of it, the most valuable infrastructure every society has is its young people.
And yet they seem to be being sacrificed with the financial budgets more increasingly towards war aids as a diplomat, as
Yeah.
someone fighting, not say fighting, an ally for human rights, how do you see this progression that seems to be increasingly despairing that there is more investment in what would be war and defence as opposed to the education of exactly what our future and our revolution depends on, our children?
Well, let me go back to my first point, because I think some of us are deeply worried at the minute by what's happening in the so-called leaders of the free world. We have a president of the United States who unfortunately is separating children from their parents at the border, and many of those parents are seeking asylum or are trying to come to the United States as refugees. I'm not pretending it's a simple problem, but if you separate children from their parents, you do something that's almost irreparable in terms of damage to that child, unless you've got very good reasons for doing it, unless the child is being cruelly treated or whatever. And in my own case, in my own country, tragically, with our Indigenous people, we took a lot of the Aboriginal children away and gave them to white families because we thought that'd give them a better future. How stupid can you be? But that happened last century. And it wasn't just the government doing it, it was some of the churches who had this misguided notion that Indigenous people, because they weren't perhaps as educated or as civilised, couldn't care for their children.
And yet they're living the pure nature of life, and we're the ones who are complicating it with who knows what.
And so, to go back to my first point, after the Second World War, the creation of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we created a rules-based system. The World Trade Organization emerged, the World Bank, the international financial institutions. We tried to create an international community where countries respected each other, and we created a series of human rights conventions for women, for children, against torture, for people with disabilities. Now, there's a real risk that that whole system is fracturing. We're looking at a system now where the European countries, including the one where we're sitting in, and Germany and others, are trying to struggle with the leader of the United States, the most powerful country in the world, who's saying, no, I don't want all of that. Don't need human rights, don't need a world-based regulation of international trade. No, America first. You know, that's not the way.
But it's not America first either, in the sense that it's the people. Again, you in your first point.
Yeah.
The government shouldn't be the ones who are playing the party and making the decisions. It should be based on the people, but the people aren't really at the forefront. What are you doing about this?
Well, what I'm doing
Tell us
about
what you're doing about it.
I've had the great privilege of setting up independent national human rights commissions in about 70 countries around the world. So I was the Federal Human Rights Commissioner way back in 1986. I did that for 8 years. Then I was fortunate enough to go as an Assistant Secretary General to the United Nations. And there, with a woman called Mary Robinson, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, we worked in establishing independent national human rights commissions. You see, we've got all these international human rights treaties that we negotiate as diplomats, and I was involved in negotiating some of them. But if they're not being implemented at the coalface, they don't mean anything. I mean, over here in international treaties, if that human rights isn't translated into reality for equality for women, for special protection for children, for some sort of equal opportunities for people with disabilities, for recognition that mentally ill people should not be treated like criminals, they should be treated like people with a health problem.
And immigrants running from war should be given asylum somehow between the communities.
And in international law, that is what we've established. Now, in Europe, we have a big problem, frankly, in this part of the world. In international law, we created a system where refugees and those seeking asylum could get it in the country where they first landed. It's no secret that many of those people landed in Italy and Greece, and Italy and Greece are now saying to the rest of Europe, including Germany and France, you're not taking your fair share. So the structure that we created after the Second World War has got some problems. In fact, it's got a lot of problems, including with modern media and the internet. All of our structure for intellectual property is kind of a bit out of date. But if we don't, as individuals, to come back to your point, if we don't see it as our collective responsibility and our individual responsibility, in whatever social situation we find ourselves, to pitch in, to help those less fortunate, to help those less advantaged than ourselves, then we will not be part of making the world a better place. So I'm a great believer in the fact that it all does start with the individual, and then very often we group ourselves together in community service groups or whatever, or non-government organisations to help the less fortunate. But at the level of setting down norms, I guess that's what I've been doing most of the time, creating independent national commissions which are based on law. They have to have a legal mandate and they have powers to investigate violations of human rights and to monitor whether or not governments are respecting and protecting the rights of their own people, because tragically in many cases they're not.
Hey, hey.
Free taxi 4 times a month and 25% discount on your car insurance if you're the Zero Hero. As I was saying, the Harbour, Beckett's and the Playwrights are part of the same group. One of my favourite restaurants is right here in the Harbour, but also Playwrights, they have such great original dishes. But when we go out, we have wine, we also drink alcohol, and therefore we have to be really careful about drinking and driving. We have the free taxi offer if you're insured with Leading Director, but if you're not insured with them, there are also ways of helping you keep to the rules and not taking the car if you had a drink too many. For example, the new Zero Hero incentive. If you go to an establishment like the Beckett's, Playwrights, or the Harbour, and you see this sticker, that means that if you come with 3 friends to drink and you're not going to be drinking because you're driving them, you don't pay for your soft drinks. Very, very cool. Go to our web, MarbellaNowTV.com, for full details.
Hey, hey.
You talked about setting up the different commissions in different countries, countries that are in such turmoil, Rwanda, places that have such conflict that the people are so vulnerable. What's it like when you arrive there, coming from Australia, from a very privileged country, to see people living there? Where do you begin?
You start, and I guess this is where it was helpful to be a diplomat for 20 years. You start by having to understand the political and social and economic and cultural situation that you're dealing with, because every country is different and the situation in every country is a product of the history. Now, for instance, to take one of the countries you mentioned, the Hutus and the Tutsis had lived quite peacefully in Rwanda for many years until their political leader decided to play the race card. What happened in the former Yugoslavia? Christians, Muslims, Croats, Serbs had lived together peacefully for generations until political leaders decided to play the race card. And what we've discovered, and one of the things that I work at, is once that genie of racial hatred or intolerance or discrimination on the basis of colour or race or religion, once that genie is out of the bottle, we're not very good at putting it back. What we have to do is create institutions that are designed, and specifically human rights commissions are, to educate our society that we need to be a culture of respect for individual difference, non-discrimination, equality, recognition of everybody for what they are. And so in so many countries, in Europe itself, I think Europeans got a big shock when the former Yugoslavia fell apart, and that was that terrible situation in Bosnia and the countries around there. They realised it could happen in Europe's backyard.
We thought it could never happen again after the Second World War, and it was just happening without us even... It was like, okay, just to interrupt, this is something that worries me, because the children are our future. And everything you're saying about teaching, do you think we can get to the children as efficiently as, for example, these San Andreas video games that have desensitized our children to a point that they can go around running people over in cars, slashing throats as a game? How do you think that we can compete with something that has become almost second nature to them, that they could be guiding drones and killing people for real and not even know it by being connected into central systems on a day like today? How do we sensitize these children again to realize that that isn't right when they play at it?
I think we do face a real challenge, and I think with all the wonders of modern technology and the internet and mobile phones and iPads and the rest of it, we have a challenge now that the culture of respect for other people basically starts at home. It starts with children. But if the children are spending more and more time playing games where they shoot other people or blow up buildings or whatever, we have to recognise that that is going to have some sort of mental impact on the children that are doing that. I couldn't believe it recently when I said my 2 young nephews, I said, what are you doing? They were sitting there with their 2 friends. All 4 of them were texting each other. They weren't actually talking to each other. I thought there's something seriously wrong here. we may be in danger of losing the sort of empathy that goes with communications between ourselves as individuals. You don't get empathy, you don't understand sympathy or empathy from pushing buttons and shooting people and blowing up
It's a skin
buildings.
feeling that people aren't getting anymore.
You've got to have interpersonal connections and interpersonal reactions. And that's something that we pick up subconsciously from the time that we're children. Now, if our society is changing in that way, and it is, then I think we've got to adapt both at home and in the sort of educational programs that perhaps we have in our schools. And there's no doubt that that is having an impact. There's no doubt that some young people are desensitised to the point that you look at these horrific circumstances in the United States. I had to do a television interview in China last year, and China was saying all the things they've created, but you know, some of them, or a lot of them, want to be like America, is wealthy. And I said, well, look, in a country now where drug abuse and opioids have caused more deaths than car accidents, maybe we've got a problem that the United States hasn't. Now, the United States has, in the last 12 months, begun to recognise that they have this huge problem with drug abuse of things that were supposed to be medical painkillers, but the situation's got out of control. They were overprescribed, and it's a problem in my country too. So we've got to look at what's happening in our society, we've got to do a reality check on what's happening, and we've got to be prepared to admit that we need to change our strategies for education or for getting through to our young people in a way that makes them really connect with us and with their society. Otherwise, they will be alienated and disenchanted with a society they feel doesn't value them.
Or victim and subject to that society without any recourse. This is what worries me, that by the time they perhaps realise that this isn't what they want for their future, because it's their future that we are now talking about, that it might be too late, that these big conglomerates that dictate that the children with learning problems take medication, even the FDA and the DEA published alerts and warnings because they themselves said that they couldn't compete with the finances of the laboratories, and appealing to parents to do their own research, investigation, and not just to jump on the bandwagon as we all tend to, it seems to be the trend.
Well, that's another challenge, I think. We live in a very, very rapidly changing world. When I was a kid, there were a few multinational corporations. By the time I was the Federal Human Rights Commissioner, we had 7,000 multinational corporations. By last year, we had over 80,000 multinational corporations, and they have over 770,000 subsidiaries around the world. Now, we now live in a world where a lot of big corporations are much more powerful than a lot of countries. To give you an example, 5 years ago, of the 100 biggest economic entities in the world, 49 were countries, 51 were corporations. By last year, of the 100 biggest economic entities in the world, 69 were corporations and only 31 were countries. Okay, so we've got
the uneven balancing of government, with these businesses being more rich and powerful than the government.
And that's where it becomes incumbent on us as individuals to take an intelligent interest in what's happening in our country. Because these corporations, in Australia where I come from, we have two of the three biggest mining companies in the world, BHP Billiton and Conzinc Rio Tinto. Now, as Chief of Staff to our former Trade Minister, I saw the power of those corporations. I'm not saying they're evil. What I am saying is that in many cases, while governments pretend they're running the country, if you look behind what is actually happening, the power of corporations which make big donations to elections is often a situation which produces corruption, not something that's completely unknown in Andalusia, I've noticed since I came here, but it's a huge problem in most of the countries I'm dealing with. It's worldwide. So what do we do in a world where big corporations, for instance now the ones, Apple and the others, who manufacture these toys and who basically are putting out there, in a society some would say it's becoming increasingly materialistic. I think we have to recognise that our society has become increasingly materialistic, and so that importance of us as adults conveying a sense of a value system, the worth of each individual. My father was a clergyman. He used to talk about the value of the human soul, but the worth of each individual, the dignity that everybody is entitled to, an equal opportunity that everybody's entitled to. Somehow we need to get that message through, and you're absolutely right. That message doesn't come from pushing Game Boy buttons or, you know, blowing up buildings down at the local game shop.
It's worrying, and I'm going to, when you were so close, you're in the government, as you say, you're right there. did you have any power to do anything? Well, many comments about having Barack Obama, yay, great, but then it would seem that he couldn't do anything. Bill Clinton, and I'm going to tell you everything I know about the aliens, and I can't do anything. Can anyone do anything? You were right there. We can aspire together, but when you're there, can you make a difference?
I was very fortunate because, and this is also true in England and some countries, as the Chief of Staff to our former Prime Minister and our former Deputy Prime Minister, you're right next to them. And frankly, you do have a lot of influence on what happens, but you're constantly dealing, and you're seeing all the time this interaction between the corporate world and the political world. You're seeing the fact that what goes to the top of the political agenda isn't the most vulnerable and disadvantaged people because they're not politically powerful. What goes
They're
to
not
the top
even in the equation, from
well,
what you're just saying.
very often they're not, and that was the problem with our Indigenous people in Australia. They weren't part of the equation. They were only 4% of the population. Technically they were there, yes, but they weren't ever going to change any government, and governments want to be elected and re-elected. One person can always make a difference. And I'll just give you one example. I'll never forget, in the 60s, I was arrested in my country for protesting against apartheid. Every time the Springboks came to Australia, we'd protest against apartheid. In about 30 years later, in 1994-95, I think it was, I had the privilege of sitting down in South Africa. At that stage, I was working as an Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations and I'd helped set up their National Human Rights Commission. I had Thabo Mbeki on one side of me and F.W. de Klerk on the other. And if anybody had told me when I was being arrested for fighting the apartheid system or objecting to it, that I would be sitting down at a point where that country had got rid of this racist-based system, I wouldn't have believed them. And I use that example sometimes in saying to young people I'm teaching, you can always make a difference. You mightn't see the difference you're making, but if you care about other people, if you treat other people with dignity and respect, if you care for those less advantaged than yourselves, then that has a multiplier effect. And sooner or later, it may have a much bigger effect than you think is possible.
I have to say that everyone who listens to my radio show knows that Barry Manilow's One Voice is one of my favourites because it starts with just one voice and you join the other ones together, and the power, that sound that we can make, the movement that can happen.
Yeah.
We're in a small community, 27 kilometres of coastline, but 147 nationalities. Before we finish, Brian and I, as I say, I hope this is the first of many. You've come to semi-retire in Marbella because you think it's an ideal place for you to pass on now the message that you see is the next step. Please, there's the camera. What's that message? What would you ask of us that are here watching you?
I think the message that I would convey, and very often I'm not in countries as fortunate as this, is that those of us who live in a society as fortunate as this one is, those of who are blessed with good health and have had the privilege of a good education, have a commensurate responsibility to give back. And I think one of the things I find inspiring about this part of the world is that there are so many community service organisations that are giving back. I mean, and you can do that here. My wife doesn't speak Spanish, but she works for what you call the Butterfly Foundation, the Mariposa thing, because you've got children who have this terrible problem where their skin doesn't heal properly.
Yes.
And there are so many organisations like that. And I had to talk to Rotary last week, and they're doing things about mental health, mental illness, some of these problems that we don't yet recognise, some of these problems where people, elderly people with dementia, sometimes with Alzheimer's, are suffering or are alone, sometimes living without their partner who's passed on. If we can go out to them, if we can demonstrate a spirit of generosity and sometimes perhaps putting our own self second and giving up our time and our money, I think that's a wonderfully inspiring thing about this part of the world. And I think those of us who are fortunate enough to live here all of the time or part of the time can take that message to perhaps some of the poorer areas of this country and maybe some of the poorer countries of the world.
Perfect. Beautifully said. Brian, it's an absolute honour to meet you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nicole. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Wow. As I say, you just never know who you're going to be sitting next to in Marbella.
Hey, hey.
Free taxi 4 times a month and 25% discount on your car insurance if you're the Zero Hero. When you see this Zero Hero sticker, you will know that the establishment where you're seeing it is part of our Zero Hero incentive. The idea is to try and keep our 27 kilometres of coastline road as safe as possible. 147 nationalities, all driving every which way but loose, unfortunately, so we need to be extra careful. So businesses like the Urban Villa, the Kempinski Hotel, the whole of the Lineker Group, which is Tibu, Babylonia, Portside, also the Boardwalk, the Harbour, Beckett's, the Playwrights, La Red Chiringuito, have all got on board so far with this fabulous incentive. The idea is you come with your friends, 3 of you are drinking, 1 of you is going to be the person taking those people home safely. You don't pay for your soft drinks. Each establishment can make their own specific rules, but that is the gist of it. Go to our website, MarbellaNowTV.com, for full details.
Hey, hey, life's waves shifted.
I'm looking forward to meeting this young man. All I know is his name is Johan. Martin Ty of Crazy Music Productions has sent him along because he swears by this treatment, which I'm very looking forward to knowing more about. Cryonis, I believe, Johan, is the name of your company.
Yes.
And it's all about freezing bits of our bodies. And just I came to live in Marbella because I like the sun. And so I'm not so sure if I would like being frozen. Johan, hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for the invitation.
So, Cryonis, what is it? What do you do?
What are we doing? I mean, we do mostly cryotherapy. We are a cryotherapy spa, but we also have other treatments. We have ionothermy, that is a detox treatment, and we have now a new hydrofacial that is #1 Hollywood facial on the market in the moment. Those
But are these invasive treatments, like doing
do absolutely
Botox?
non-invasive treatments.
Absolutely not.
Everything what I'm doing is totally natural. And that's also why I'm very proud of it, because I think it's actually the best what we can do to our bodies to keep it natural. I don't like it plastic.
Well, I have to say that everybody is entitled to their own opinions and what they feel is right for
Exactly.
themselves. But I loved my grandmother and I thought she was beautiful, and I do believe that we need to grow old gracefully. However, some of these wrinkles that appear, if I did have a way, I suppose, of without fear of anesthetics, side effects, etc., would maybe want to try.
Yeah.
What would be the treatment for me? That I'm not looking to say lose weight, but does your treatment tighten skin? What does it do?
I think like a cryotherapy in the end, like we do cryotherapy, the Greek did cryotherapy already, but the first ones, everybody knows when there is something swollen, for example, what you put an ice pack, right? Because basically to reduce inflammation in the body. That's what the cold only in the end does, it reduces inflammation in the body. Today science finds more and more out that almost all age-related diseases are caused by inflammation, okay? Like arthritis, fibromyalgia, all these diseases are caused by inflammation in the bodies. So that's why we can do something to reduce this inflammation. There have been even studies done that show how much it can help these people.
Also, even for like everyday ailments like an arthritis or
Exactly.
joint pains, this is not just a magical weight losing thing. I think we've got the wrong idea of this treatment.
The treatment is around since 1975 in Japan. It has been created the first time, and it has been created actually for the purpose of rheumatoid arthritis. And they use it since years in alternative clinics all around the world for exactly this disease, and they're very successful with it.
Well, boy, have you got a lot of clients in Marbella. I mean, we've been talking about the aging community in Marbella intensely.
It's a totally natural treatment, because what it is only cold, but exactly this cold helps to reduce the inflammation of the arthritis, and that's why it helps so good.
So if, for example, someone with arthritis was to go, you put like cold packs around it? How does it work?
No, it's just basically a chamber, okay? In this chamber you go inside, looks like a box, and then you go inside, your head is outside, okay? And then we put basically like cold air inside, that's what we do. And then we cool down the chamber to minus 140 degrees, okay? But you can easily do it because dry cold is easier to take than wet cold. You cannot stay in minus 140 wet cold, this you can never do. But in dry cold you can easily do it, our bodies can do it. Okay?
So it treats the whole body in one go, not located to the
Absolutely,
area.
it treats the whole body in one go. And basically it has 3 main benefits. The first is health, like I told you before, arthritis, fibromyalgia, every kind of chronic pain, okay? The second is recovery. All the sports teams today use it, like Real Madrid, FC Barcelona, all the major leagues in the US, NBA, NHL, NFL. It's all standardized, this machine. Why? Because in the old times they used ice baths, because these people, they are in overtraining, right? They train a lot, so their bodies are inflamed. Again, we have the same problem, inflammation. They went before in ice baths to reduce the inflammation. Today they use the treatment of cryotherapy because 3 minutes are more effective than 35 minutes of ice bath. So this alone shows everything. And then it came into the beauty industry actually by some kind of
coincidence,
like
but chance,
coincidence, exactly, because it was like this: the American national soccer team, the ladies, they have been using it for recovery, okay, like all the other teams as well. And then the ladies, they find out when they went 3-4 times in the chamber that the cellulite went much better. Why? It's also logical, because everything that is having a tis in the ending means inflammation. Okay, so arthritis, tendinitis, cellulitis. Cellulitis is nothing else than the inflammation of a fat cell. So obviously also here, when we reduce this inflammation, we get the picture of the skin more nice. And on top of that, it stimulates the natural production of collagen. So what we do as well is we do cryofacials. So we do it in the face. We work with the cold air. What's happening, because it's so cold, the skin is thinking that it's dying and it's overproducing collagen. And obviously when we lose collagen, we get everything what we don't like. Dark circles, wrinkles, all that stuff. And when we find a way to naturally produce collagen, then I think it's a very nice thing that we can do for our faces. I always say like cryonics is basically become a part of the new generation of beauty and health.
But what a nice thing that it's not invasive and it has no side effects. You've never had anyone with any side effects from having a little bit of a cold shot.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's contraindications like Raynaud syndrome. This is, for example, people that cannot get cold. Obviously, they cannot do the treatment, right? But not a lot more.
And it's not going to make you get a cold or
pregnancy and stuff like this. This is always the same thing. Of course, this is contraindicated, but everybody else can easily.
So if you're not pregnant or there's no
exactly.
the usual things for doing anything
Exactly,
different.
yeah.
And then you also have this detox treatment.
Yes.
What's that?
This is a treatment that I bring from ships because I worked 5 years on cruise ships for Steiner all around the world, 2 cruises around the world and so on.
And what were you doing?
Beautiful life. I was first a personal trainer, and after spa managing 17 girls from different nationalities.
What a tough life. You can see that this boy's had a hard time, can't you?
It was actually not that easy, but yeah, it was a good time and I loved it. And they bring this treatment because it's a detox treatment, actually one of the best detox treatments on the market. It works with algae, because algae is 97% alkaline, and we work especially in these areas where it's hard for us to burn fat. Like let's say here in the legs, or here. Why it's we don't burn fat anymore there? Because these areas are very acidic with time, okay? Because the body puts all the toxins in the areas where no organs, and this is where the fat areas are. And these toxins, basically, they reduce and slow down the fat metabolism. And the algae is neutralizing this acidity, and for this we can directly basically burn again better fat in these areas, and we do directly lose. We measure you before and after, okay? And what you do lose is retention water. That's what you use.
How long does it last for? These effects from both treatments?
If you do like 3-5 treatments of ionotherapy, for example, I have seen it on the work cruise, what was quite impressive, because on the work cruise, I had people do it 2-3 times a week over 3 months, and they lost even weight from it. So it was really working, because also this retention water is obviously also weight, right? Because our body contains of water, right? And when this bad water gets out, then we also lose weight. And it's really good for cellulite again, because also the cellulite is very caused by this acidity in the body. That's what it makes the cellulite as well.
Wow, Johan, I mean, fascinating to say the least, especially if without any interventions we can get these wonderful benefits. Now, you're all looking at my face now, you all see me for weeks, so if I go, you will be able to see the before and after.
Absolutely, you can check it out on our Instagram. We have on our Instagram nice pictures where you can see our clients, where they do 3-4 treatments, and we can see the before and after. If you check our Instagram, Cryonics, underline Marbella, you can find a lot more about us.
And how long do those things, when you do the face cryonis and things?
The face cryo, we have like weekly packages that a lot of the tourists take when they're here for a week or stuff like this. They go 3-4 times, and then they really feel the benefits.
For how long? Do you have to do it every week?
I mean, it's like, let's say like this, all right? It's a little bit like, you know what, when you do fitness training, I compare it like this, because everything that is non-invasive is something that is going slowly into the body, but it also holds them longer, okay? So that, for example, if I do fitness training once a week, what I have from it, like, wow, a little bit. If I do 3 times a week, obviously I have a little bit more from it. If I do this over, let's say, 3 weeks, okay, then I have already something achieved. If I then continue to go once, twice, then I can keep the results.
And what happens if you stop? Will your face just suddenly and body drop?
No, I think it will still keep the results for, like, let's say, at least for 2-3 weeks.
But it wouldn't be worse than before?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
We'll go for that, definitely not. Johan,
Absolutely not.
Dankeschön.
Yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely.
free taxi 4 times a month and 25% discount on your car insurance if you're the Zero Hero. There are so many advantages when we help each other. I'm always predicating hashtag better together, but it's true, if we join forces, we can really do so much for one another. And I'm so delighted that the Linear Director Road Traffic Safety Foundation and Linear Director Car Insurance, or the insurance company, supports Marbella Now, because I can then tell them all the things that go on in our community, and I'm so proud to say they actually listen and do things for us. The taxi 4 times a month with no charge if you insure them to take you home, your car in the tow truck if you want to. Well, they're even going further than that now. If you use our special United Nationalities of Marbella supporters code, you get an additional 25% off your car insurance, your motorbike insurance and your house insurance, just because you are hashtag better together.
Hey, hey.
Hashtag better together has never been more appropriate. Thanks to Martin Ty of Crazy Music Productions, we met our first guest today, Johan, and now through him we're meeting this lovely gentleman whose name is Alan. And Alan does something very kind of complementary, I think, to what Johan does, and you're both going to be doing an event on the 27th of June together at the Cryosis place in that's next to Glow in Puerto Perusa, Playas del Duque.
Correct.
So exciting, Alan.
It is really good. So yes, I represent a company called Isogenics. I'm an independent associate of the company, and we're having an event on the 27th of June at the Cryonis establishment in the evening.
See all these names just there. It's just so great. So I'm glad you say it so beautifully. So repeat those names so I can learn them.
The Isogenics, which is the company that I represent. I'm an independent associate for Isogenics, and we're having an event at Cryonis on Wednesday night of next week, the 27th. Which will be highlighting obviously the technologies and the services that they currently provide, but also a brand new range of nutrition that's coming into Spain, being launched actually on next Monday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, finally, throughout Spain. And Johannes and his team at Cryonis are actually one of our partners here along the coast, and one of the outlets for the products, and we'll be able to see the products on that particular evening, and people better come and try and test them under the heading of champagne and shakes.
Champagne and shakes. Well, I have to say that our lovely Amanda Anstey, our agony aunt, has been talking about Isogenics to me for a couple of weeks, because she is a guinea pig, I see, on this, because she's actually doing this. So how wonderful that you're here today to actually explain what Amanda's up to. What is she expecting to get out of this?
Well, basically, Isogenics is a business in the health and well-being industry. All the products are natural-based products. It's all to do with healthy, positive nutrition and in helping the body to perform at its best. It helps the body to regain energy and to help to detoxify itself in a natural way. So for somebody like Amanda, who's been very kind to be a guinea pig for us, what she's doing is she's hopefully losing a few pounds, but also allowing the body to regain its natural balance and to get to an alkaline state, far more of an alkaline state. So the body feels more uplifted and feels far more positive. And in doing so, then people's energy gets released, and they feel more like being out and about and doing things.
Well, it's certainly good for the willpower, because last week we sat here, we were having the amazing smoked mackerel pate, the croquettes here, which are superb, and Amanda was like, no, I'm doing this new Isogenics thing. So it must be obviously doing her good, because she wasn't suffering not joining it. She goes, no, I'm doing this Isogenics thing, and I'm feeling really good about it.
Well, the thing about Isogenics is that it is good, healthy nutrition, but it also works with whole foods as well. So we don't say to people, oh, you should only be eating these products, this is the only thing to do. These work alongside whole foods and a good nutritional balance. The products are aimed at weight wellness, they're aimed at energy, and they're also aimed at performance. So for example, they can be used as a diet. They're not actually specifically for a diet, but they're very, very effective as a diet. They help people like myself regain energy. I'm 58, I've been on the products now for quite some time. I have found myself with far more energy than I've had before, which has allowed me to get far more involved in sports in a way that I haven't been able to for quite a number of years. At the same time, we've got sports people, so people in the US where it has the informed sports accreditation. We've got pro athletes and Olympic athletes who actually use these products as their nutritional diet in order to improve their performance.
So would it be for everyday people like myself, and I don't want to lose weight, but would it be beneficial? Are you replacing your normal diet for this 100%, or is it something you can mix in with me coming to dinner here, for example? I like to go out.
Absolutely, and you can mix it in with what you do, and this is the thing. It is a product that is a lifestyle product. So some people who are wanting to shed some weight might have more of it to begin with and less of a whole meal diet, but they would still have a whole meal diet within that regime. Over a period of time, when they get to meet their targets, then they would change the balance of how they would use the product and the product range to meet that new situation. If then people wanted to go on and started to get more lean muscle, etc., then they could again change the makeup of how they use the products to go after that as well.
So I suppose basically it's everything together is the perfect combination. It's like it's not just one thing; it's a little bit of everything.
It's a matter of using the products together in order to achieve your particular targets and your aims. But what people do find is that it releases a lot of energy. It helps them sleep better at night. It lowers the stress levels that people have. And this is all natural-based products. All natural-based products.
So 27th of June at the Cryonis Centre, which is in Playas del Duque in Puerto Banús. Go along to this fabulous event because it's an opportunity to see the isogenics range.
That's correct.
Also to try out some of these fabulous treatments that are not invasive to make us look so young and beautiful.
And it's all under the heading of champagne and shakes. So there's a clue in there as well. There's, you can enjoy life and enjoy living as well as enjoy these products and the technologies that Cryonis
Perfect combination. Hashtag better together. Thank you so much, Alan.
My
a pleasure.
Thank you.
Hey, hey.
Hay momentos en los que necesitas que cuiden de ti, relajar, desconectar y equilibrar tu mente, descubrir la alta gastronomía y crear nuevos hábitos de alimentación. Ejercitar e hidratar, estimular y tonificar tu cuerpo. Hay momentos para disfrutar, programas para perder peso, con las aguas detox de Villapadierna Termas Hotel, Carratraca, Málaga. Continúa la experiencia en villapadierna.es.
Thanks to CIT Marbella, we get to meet this lovely young lady. Her name is Maria, and she's come to talk about the Roman baths that are in a village in Malaga called Carratraca.
Yes.
It's such a fun name.
Yes, it is.
But lovely to meet you, Maria.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to join us and talk about this. Marbella has so much history out this area, Malaga, Andalusia. We had the Moors living here for 800 years, and then you've got the Romans were here. And to think that we actually have Roman remains that we can visit and be part of,
yes,
is very exciting.
Sure. We have this Roman bath in Carratraca, as you say. Carratraca is a very charming village next to Marbella. It's only 30-40 minutes away. And there you can enjoy the Roman bath in Villapadierna Termas de Carratraca. That is our hotel. There you can just go and enjoy and relax and disconnect from the world.
The Via Padierna name seems to really be extending, because you've got the Via Padierna Estepona side, you've got it also in the Calahonda area, and so now Via Padierna we can go and enjoy the same luxuries but in this little village.
Yes, it's that. We have the hotel in Estepona, and also we have 3 golf courses, and we have a beach club that you can enjoy this summer. But this hotel is very, very special because the water, they are thermals, and they have properties for the health and the beauty.
So it's like if you fancy going for one of these relaxing, rejuvenating stays, this would be a place to go without really going very far, because you say it's just a short drive away.
Yes, it is. And you can go there to enjoy just one day. We have one-day programs to relax and detox, balance your body and your mind. But also you can stay for 3-4 weeks and get a full program for your body.
So you mean apart from the waters and the baths as such, you also then offer supplementary treatments as well to make sure that you're getting the full whammy, from massages to the whole thing?
Yes, that's it. All our programs have the water therapies, also sport side to get ready your body, and also a gastronomy side. We have a restaurant that is specialized in healthy food, so we prepare a special diet for each person who comes.
So that's nice if you're looking, as I say, to get just a complete detox, relax. It sounds absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
Have you yourself tried the baths yet?
Yes, and I love them. When I go there, I just leave my body and enjoy and feel the peace.
Because it's that peace, isn't it? It's that disconnecting from the day-to-day that we don't realise, I think, how much it does drain on our natural resources. So how did you get to speak such good English? You're a little nervous about speaking English, but really, your English is fabulous. Where did you learn English?
I went to Cambridge, United Kingdom.
Oh la la! Only the best for Maria. But where did you grow up? Where were you born?
I was born here in Malaga, and I went to Madrid to study and to work, and I have just returned to Malaga to work here and to promote our products and our places that are wonderful to go.
It's so nice to see how many local youngsters actually do leave, but then to come home again, it's like most people leave and then like, I came here and I never went back. But when you originate from somewhere as nice as Malaga, how do you find the difference of Malaga that is still very much Spanish compared to Marbella that's very international? It's hard to know sometimes we're in Spain. How does that feel for you?
For me, it's amazing because I didn't know very well Marbella, and now we come back to Marbella, I see that it's like another place, it's another world. It's very different from Malaga or other places around. Marbella, as you say, it's very international.
And a great opportunity for practicing your English, of course, when you come here with those who don't speak Spanish. So if we would like to go to the Via Padierna thermal bars in Caratraca, which is in the province of Malaga, what do we have to do? Do we have to ring and book like a normal hotel? Can we just go and pop in for the spa if we're in the area? What's the system?
You can call for more information, and they will explain you that we have one-day programs and we have treatment that you can receive one day. You can go there to enjoy the cuisine. We have a very specialized chef, and then you can enjoy the full programs. You can just check our website or just call.
It really does sound like it's something worth leaving Marbella for. I'm always the first one to say, got to get your passport, get your jabs, if you're going to go through the Marbella arches. But sometimes it really is worthwhile just going that extra mile or 2 or 30.
Yes.
Maria, it's lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
And I wish you a lovely summer. And this is not a threat, but I think we'll be coming to see you.
Yes, please come to see us and enjoy our waters.
And one thing quickly, are children allowed?
I think that are allowed under 14.
So up to over 14?
Yes.
So before you grab and fill the car up with your babies, these are just little things to take into consideration, because obviously you've got that peaceful, silent atmosphere, and so 14 and over. Just thought it was worth mentioning, because I know that the summer now, with everyone looking what to do with the kids, this is a lovely thing to do, but obviously age appropriate.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Maria.
You're welcome.
Free taxi 4 times a month and 25% discount on your car insurance if you're the Zero Hero.
I was delighted that I have my car insured with Línea Directa, because when I was going to the station in Malaga just a few months ago, the car broke down in 5 lanes of terrible traffic. It was terrifying. The good thing was, although I couldn't explain exactly where I was, the GPS locator came to find us, and then while the car was being repaired, we had a courtesy car. Línea Directa really is watching out for our best interests, so check them out, 952 14 78 34 or lineadirector.com.
Hello, I'm Ray Litchfield from Laura de San Pedro. Last week's sign was smile to the world. One more time, smile to the world. This week's sign is take care. One more time, take care.
Hello Marbella, it's Amanda here again, and I'm here in the wonderful harbour restaurant in Marbella Deportivo, filming with Nicole and Marbella Now to bring you another problem which we hope we can solve, or at least put some light on. Now, I've been contacted by Mr. and Mrs. P. Well, actually by Mrs. P more than Mr. P, although I have spoken to him. Now, they have a problem which I think is quite common, as I say, for all my problems, but most problems are more common than we think. And it's this. Mr. and Mrs. P have been married for 3 years. They've lived here that time. Mrs. P lost her parents when she was a child, and when she and Mr. P got together, was very glad that she was going to have a mother figure in her life. Mr. P's parents are both alive, and she was looking forward to a good relationship with her mother-in-law, and perhaps building something and part of it being part of a family and having that closeness again. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out like that. Mrs. P's mother-in-law took an instant dislike to her. From the 2 years before she and Mrs. P were married, it just didn't work. Mrs. P tried to get her mother-in-law involved in the actual wedding and said, please come shopping with me for the dress, etc., etc. And that was turned down flat, it didn't work. And so she's tried. And then she just said, okay, enough. The parents, Mr. P's parents live in the UK, they're out in here in lovely sunny Marbella. Now the problem is that Mr. and Mrs. P, their mother-in-law, well, Mr. P's mother and father are coming to stay for a month through the summer, and Mrs. P is tearing her hair out at the roots, and she doesn't know how she's going to cope with this. She doesn't want to argue with her mother-in-law because it's going to upset the holiday, upset the husband. She gets on very well with her father-in-law, which is perhaps part of the problem that Mrs. P's mother-in-law doesn't quite approve of that, although it's a totally paternal relationship. She's very glad to have an older man in her life again that she can talk to, as she'd lost her father. Now, she's written to me and her husband's spoken to me, I spoke to them, and how do they cope with this? How do they get through this month? And how does Mrs. P get a better relationship with her mother-in-law? Well, I think she's doing the right things already. She's trying not to argue. She's not answering back when when her mother-in-law is being rude to her. She's talking to her husband about the feelings. So she's not keeping this all inside. We don't want a divided situation where you have Mr. P being asked to choose between his mother and his wife, because that's not good for anybody. And families should come together, not go apart. And Mrs. P would actually really still like a good relationship with her mother-in-law. So I've suggested that when they come over, firstly, when Mrs. T, if she does, gets to the end of her tether, to come and see me for half an hour, or go down to the beach for half an hour, or go and have her nails painted, get away from the situation till she calms down, and then go back into it. But also that she should try and make some time maybe for her and her mother-in-law to spend just them. It'll be lovely for her husband to be with his dad and they can go off and play golf or have a drink or just sort of wander around. But if Mrs. P can take her mother-in-law out, maybe come for a coffee, introduce her to some girlfriends, go out for a girl's drink, go shopping, Mrs. P is doing all the right things. And there comes a point where she can only do so much. If her mother-in-law is determined not to have a good relationship, then there's not a lot she can do. But if she can gradually bring her around, often mothers are jealous, they feel displaced by the new man in their son's life. She's brought Mr. P up from a baby, she gave birth, she's brought him up. He's her boy, he's her only son, she's very, very close to him. So perhaps there's a little bit of jealousy there, even if it's not realised. There's also the thought that she is no longer the most important woman in Mr. P's life. Mrs. P now is. And we can all understand that feeling of being displaced. So Mrs. P is doing the right thing. She has to handle it very, very carefully. But always communication. Communicate with her husband, communicate with her mother-in-law if she can, and realise it's not her fault. she's doing all the right things. And if any one of you out in Marbella, please have any tips for dealing with difficult mother-in-laws, or are a mother-in-law themselves that wants to have a better relationship with their daughter-in-law or feels it isn't as good as it can be, please get in touch. It's not an easy process. We don't fix these problems overnight. It takes work, and the first part of that work is communication. And also, the second thing is love. And if we have love, we can get over everything. I truly believe that. Anyway, it's goodbye from me at the harbour, enjoying a wonderful day with the sun and the sea and some lovely people. And I'm going to hand you back to Nicole. And thank you very much for listening, Marbella. Send us your problems. And it's bye from me, Amanda, from Silk and Sin. And remember, if you want to contact me, it's amanda@silkandsin.com. Thank you very much and have a great week, Marbella. Bye.
Thank you for joining us this week at the Harbour Marbella in the Marbella Harbour. It's been great fun. Our guests have been just such a pleasure. We look forward to being back again next week. But in the meanwhile, you can check out the recordings of this programme, of Me Marbella Radio and my column in the Euroweek from our website, MarbellaNowTV.com. Please take care of yourselves, be nice to each other, and we'll see you again next week. Hasta luego, adiós.
And it's time